Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to get to the bottom of a really frustrating paradox in modern governance. It's this idea of digital transformation that, well, that seems to stop right at the finish line.
We're looking at a specific case study here from sources analyzing Nepal's big push for paperless governance.
Right, specifically through their Nagaric app. And the vision, you have to admit, was beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. A single, seamless portal for every single interaction between a citizen and the state.
The whole promise was to just erase that bureaucratic friction,
Yeah.
that hidden tax that just drags down the whole economy.
But then you have the reality, the core paradox we're digging into today.
Exactly. You fill everything out online. It's perfect. It's compliant. You hit send, and then you get that final instruction.
Please print this document and bring it to our office for a stamp.
It's the sound of the digital promise just colliding with this analog wall.
It really is. And for you listening, it's so important to see that this isn't just some small annoyance. It's a symptom of a really profound systemic failure.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, to understand why this digital twin problem exists, where we just digitize the paper but not the actual process.
And crucially, where the real billion-dollar opportunity is hiding if we can actually solve it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our source material points to really a failure on 3 different levels.
Right. You have the process flaw, that's the stamp itself. Then you have the architectural flaw, which is all about the silos inside the government.
And finally, the strategics flaw, mistaking a product, like an app, for a platform.
And that order is so critical. You can't fix the top-level problem if the foundation is, let's just say, rotten. The servers are the easy part.
It's always the easy part. The real cost, the real political challenge, is in changing the laws and the bureaucracy itself.
Exactly. It's about shifting the whole philosophy of how a state should work.
So let's start with that most visible friction point, the stamp. We're calling it the phantom of the stamp.
A good name for it, because that physical mark, the chip, it's proof that all this digitalization is really just a thin layer of paint on a very old machine.
We're not really transforming. We're just making digital twins of these incredibly inefficient paper processes.
And you inherit all of that inefficiency. The sources make it really clear the root causes here are not technical, they're behavioral. First up is the legal lag.
Okay, explain that, because I know they've tried to keep the law up to date. Didn't Nepal pass an Electronic Transactions Act way back in 2006?
They did, and theoretically it validates digital records, but the entire administrative culture is built on this deep historical respect for physical evidence, the
The
Govt.
signed and stamped piece of paper.
That's the ultimate unchallengeable proof. So
Yeah.
for a mid-level bureaucrat who's just trying to avoid risk, the tangible safety of that physical stamp, it just feels more real than some digital signature.
So wait, even if the law says the digital version is valid, they're defaulting to paper out of, what, professional self-preservation?
That's a huge part of it. And that leads to the second point, the psychology of accountability and what is, frankly, a low-trust system.
Lame deflection.
It's paramount. A physical signature and a stamp, they are non-reputable. It's a clear chain of custody. I approved this, here is my mark. A physical file feels permanent. A digital log, no matter how secure you say it is, it just doesn't inspire that same confidence.
So the personal cost of a digital error feels much higher to that individual.
Much higher. And then you layer on top of that the structural resistance. Internal ministry regulations, they often have more power than these big national acts.
So a local rule about, say, a physical registration log.
The Dharta Chalani, yeah. That rule is more immediate and powerful to a bureaucrat than the promise of national transformation. They're just following the rule book that's right in front of them.
And the consequence of all this, the painful part, is that the citizen or the business becomes the integration layer.
You're the one forced to bridge the gap.
The classic example is just perfect. You go online, you get your tax clearance from the RD portal. Great. Step 1, done.
But then you have to print it out and physically carry it over to the company registrar's office.
And in that moment, the Nagaric app stops being this tool of efficiency.
And becomes, as one analysis put it, a glorified state-sanctioned printer queue. It's a brutal but accurate description.
Okay, so that's the process problem. Let's widen the lens now to the architecture this whole thing is based on, the interoperability gap.
The Sisyphus of silos.
Yes. And this isn't about a lack of good engineers, is it? This is about politics, raw political structures.
It is entirely about power and control. Ministries see the data they hold. Citizenship records, vehicle registrations, not as just information, but as an asset.
Data as a fiefdom.
Exactly. That asset translates directly into budgets, into institutional relevance, into authority. So for the person in charge, seamless data sharing feels like a loss of sovereignty.
Let's make this concrete for everyone listening. The sources use the example of renewing your vehicle's registration, the Blue Book.
An annual ordeal for many. And it perfectly illustrates the problem. You might pay your vehicle tax online through a digital wallet.
Okay.
But when you go to the Department of Transport Management, the official there, they often can't or won't trust the digital receipt. They demand the printout.
Why?
Because their system doesn't talk to the tax department's system seamlessly. And then your insurance data is in another private silo, police records in another.
So that flimsy little paper Blue Book,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that actually connects all these different offices.
Precisely. The paper itself is the bridge. It physically moves between and gets stamped by all these disconnected digital systems. It's a staggering thought, really.
And this silo mentality, it led to a predictable conflict. You had the slow foundational national ID project, the NID.
Which was supposed to be a one source of truth for identity.
But it was so slow that the Nagaric app just filled the void. It quickly integrated all the old legacy IDs, like citizenship numbers.
Which created competing centers of digital identity. So now doing a proper unified know your customer check, a KYC, is much harder. And this wasn't an engineering mistake.
It was a political failure.
A failure to have one powerful entity that could force all the ministries to get in line and use a single architecture.
Which brings us to the third failure, the strategic one. The government is trying to be a product developer, building this app.
When it's a field where they just can't compete, they don't have the agility.
So what's the alternative?
The alternative is the big strategic shift. Government as a platform, gap. The real power isn't in building the app yourself. It's in creating secure, standardized APIs.
Digital doorways.
Perfect way to describe them. Digital doorways that let the private sector build the great services on top of the government's data.
And the best example of this working is the India stack, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't just one big government app.
Not at all. It's a set of open public APIs. You have identity with Aadhaar, payments with UPI, documents with DigiLocker. The government's genius was building the secure rails like the UPI payment system and then stepping back.
So they built the trust layer, the infrastructure, and the user experience.
The market built that.
Yeah.
Private companies, PhonePay, Google Pay, Paytm, they built the amazing apps that everyone uses. They're driven by convenience and competition, not by a government mandate.
So for the business community listening, if Nepal were to make this API pivot, what's the actual opportunity?
It's massive. You're outsourcing user experience. So instead of a clunky government portal for renewing your business license,
Right.
imagine a slick app from a Nepali startup that charges a small fee for one-click renewal.
And that startup could do it instantly
By using government APIs, it hits one API to verify your identity, another to instantly check your tax clearance with the IRD, and a third to submit the renewal. All secure, all instant. It creates an entire market for local tech.
And that's the virtuous cycle. Adoption is driven by convenience the market creates, not by force.
Exactly. The government's true role is to be the guardian of those foundational APIs. Ensure security, set standards, protect privacy. They provide the truth, but they let the market innovate on the delivery.
So this deep dive really brings us to a hard truth. This was never a technology problem.
Never. The engineering talent is there. This is and always has been a project of political reform. It's about dismantling those bureaucratic fiefdoms.
So what's the outlook based on the source material? Where does this go?
Well, you have two likely scenarios. The first, and probably the most likely, is the muddle through.
Which means?
Incremental improvements. A few departments might connect their systems, some small fixes, but that core digital twin problem, that phantom stamp, it will stick around for any high-value transaction. It's the path of least political resistance.
And the second, high potential scenario.
That's the API pivot. But it requires a really powerful top-down directive. A leader with the political capital to say, stop building new government apps. All resources go to building a mandatory, unified Nepal stack of APIs.
Focusing on infrastructure, not products.
That's the shift that unlocks billions in economic value.
So when you boil it all down, the paperless project has stalled because it was treated like an IT project.
When it was actually the most difficult political project you can undertake, the bottleneck is the lack of sustained political will to force that change.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Until a leader is willing to spend real political capital to make a digital signature legally and culturally more powerful than a physical stamp.
And fights every single ministry to accept it.
Our digital transformation will just remain a perfectly frustrating digital copy of an imperfect paper world. So the real question is, what political price are governments, anywhere, truly willing to pay for that kind of efficiency?